I know we have a lot of questions that are unanswered. We are going to do our best to answer some of those questions for you this evening. I know we have some that people have posted in the Q&A and possibly one that I'm seeing in the chat. So we are going to try to answer those now. This does conclude the formal presentation part of our virtual orientation, our virtual webinar. We're excited to see students back tomorrow. Those of you that want to stay for the Q&A, certainly you are welcome to do so, but you're not going to miss any formal presentation if you need to log off at this time. So thank you for joining us. We are so excited to have students back with us soon, and we hope to be in person and moving towards that phase 4 goal of being fully in person 5 days a week. So I'm going to start up at the top, I think. Dr. Blaine, I know you've been kind of monitoring that. I sometimes get doubles of questions, but it doesn't look like we have too many doubles yet. So I'll start at the top. Someone asked, what time is drop off and pickup? Those are great questions. First period begins at 8 o'clock. We do have some students, usually it's not freshmen, that take 0 period. We will have someone in the atrium to do health screening beginning at 7 a.m. We will have areas for students to sit and wait for first period. At 7:40, that's typically the time that the bell rings and we have students starting to move to first period. We will dismiss them in groups so we don't have large groups kind of moving from those 3 areas all together in the mornings. And by 8 o'clock, they should be in their first period class. Students are released at the end of the day. The bell rings at 2:40. We will also be dismissing students periodically through an announcement system. That is a new process that we are putting in place this year. When the bus routes pull up, we will be announcing the correct bus routes. Students will be going out that way, students that are being picked up by parents, so that we can have a staggered release and avoid the large group gathering out front. What day of the cycle will September 14th be? September 14th will be day 1, and students will progress through the 6-day cycle. So even days where your student is on remote, the days of the cycle will continue to cycle through. The email that I sent earlier this week had a graphic in it, and you can see on the September 14th on the bottom it says day 1, then day 2, then day 3 on Wednesday, and so on. We are running that cycle schedule so that if your student, for example, is attending on a Monday, the first day they attend school, it will be a day 1. The second day they attend school, the following Monday, it will be a day 6. Day 1 is odd, day 6 is even. Typically on a student's schedule, the PE class, physical education class, will be either the even days or the odd days. Same is true of labs for either algebra or science classes. So that will allow students to have those double periods of labs as well as their PE class on a rotating cycle. How does your schedule work when you are virtual? Do you get online the time of your classes? On Fridays, that is the day that's dedicated to our remote-only learners. So on that day, you will be expected to go through your schedule, log in with your teachers, whether they're asking you to log in on Google Classroom or Zoom. That information will be forthcoming from individual teachers with links and ways to connect with them. It will be the expectation that that's the time for you to get your questions answered and have that individualized, focused attention and academic support from your teacher. The other days of the week, you will be expected to log in, have your teacher take attendance, make sure that you know what you need to be doing. They will set expectations for you. For example, you might have a teacher say to you, today we are working on 2-step equations. Here's the bell ringer, everyone get started. The students in front of the teacher that are in person will obviously do what they typically do. The students that maybe are virtual may then be released to do independent work where they're practicing, they're off screen, and the teacher is now giving that feedback time to those students. Our teachers here at the high school also identify 1 period a day for student assistance. That will be available for our remote learners as well as our in-person learners as if they were here in school. That information is teacher by teacher based on when they have a free period in their schedule. So that will also be an opportunity for students who are remote learners to get help from teachers or to get a question clarified or I need help. I haven't connected with the classroom properly, or I keep, trying to play this video and I keep getting an error message. What should I do? We also have a lot of technical support available for students for those issues, either by calling our school. There's also a number to call the SC-RIC. There's a helpline there, 766-3800. Yes, I do have that memorized. And they are greatly helpful, and they will continue to be helpful for any technical issues you have with your Chromebooks or platforms. We also have an amazing library media specialist, Mrs. Patty Sweeney. She has been just an amazing support for all of our students. She can help bridge the gap, because sometimes the issue that a student might be having is not purely technical. Our BOCES support is great at troubleshooting different, passwords, different access, but sometimes you need someone to bridge the gap between the platform and the instruction that's happening with our teachers. Mrs. Sweeney is a great partner with many, many, many of our teachers. She's excellent with Google Classroom. She can help your student figure out, how do I submit this assignment back? I keep trying to do this and my teacher says it didn't come the right way. Mrs. Sweeney is our go-to person for that kind of support as well. So I just want to kind of give a plug there for that kind of help. There's a lot of support and a lot of expectations that are being put in place this fall that were not there in the spring. I just want to remind people that when we were in the spring and we went to closure, we were truly in an emergency situation. This year, we will do better. We will connect with students and we will have expectations for them to learn, but we also expect for them to develop independence as they go. We can't help with problems that we don't know exist. I've said this to every group that came through in person today. If you ask the question, if we don't know the answer, we will try to find it for you the best way that we can. Someone asked the question about contacting if the schedule received didn't match what they signed up for. I'm not sure if that question was answered when Mrs. Smith was speaking about multiple arts and music courses. Unfortunately, to keep those class sizes small, we were not able to give people 2 and 3 of those elective courses. We were able to give them the 1 requirement for New York State. That doesn't mean that they can't engage in those courses in the future. It just means for now we had to limit the opportunities in taking multiple of those courses. If there is a major issue, like the level isn't right, they're in an advanced course when they should have been in a regular level course, you should contact your child's teacher. I'm sorry, not their teacher, their counselor. And that name would be right on this printed schedule that your student brought home from the in-person meeting today. There's a question about the sports situation. I don't have a fully update on the sports situation. Mr. Gannon is our athletic director. He can give specifics. I do know that athletics were put on pause until September 22nd, I believe. At that time, they're going to be reevaluating, and there will be more information coming out about that. I will be sending information about sports through School Messenger when it's time, and I'll be collaborating with Mr. Gannon about what those requirements are, what that's going to look like. I have had some questions, if sports and when sports resume, how students would be able to house athletic equipment. We will develop a process for storing athletic equipment even though we're not using lockers this year. So please be patient with us as we kind of work through our first opening. And as we get closer into September, the 22nd start date, we should have more information. As soon as we know that information, we will put it out there. I know that Mr. Gannon also has an Instagram account that people can search for and follow. He is very diligent about posting updates and information about athletics and in particular Vestal athletics. Question about, will we need to print and send in the health form on in-school days, or will it end up being a Google form so we can fill it out and submit? So we're having a lot of questions around this. Right now, we are using paper forms. The district is investigating different electronic methods for that questionnaire to be submitted to make it more efficient and easier for families. Unfortunately, we have not been able to put that in place just yet, but we still have a little bit of time to kind of see if we're ready to do that. So for now, yes, you should print out that form, submit that, or you can submit the there is a PDF fillable that was distributed. You can email that back to school, and I'll give you an address, not tonight, but we'll figure out what that process would be. If you don't have a printer and you just want to fill it out online and then submit it back, we can do that as well. Is there a fee to add money to the My School Bucks account? I do not believe there is any fee to start up or use that account. You can also send your child into school with a $20 bill, and they will take that 20 and credit it to the student's account. So even if you don't transfer money electronically and you want to do it that way, they will take that money. They just will not be issuing cash change to students this year to avoid that back and forth contact. Question about logging into School Tool. I've had a lot of these questions this week. The portal for students and for parents will open on the 3rd, which is Thursday. We close the parent portal during the summer because we do a lot of scheduling work then. We're balancing class sizes, class sections, we're changing things. So we don't like that open until we're pretty confident that the schedule is set the way we need it to be. So that will be open on September 3rd. If on September 3rd, you are not able to access the School Tool portal, you may call the main office and we can do a password reset for you, or we can try to troubleshoot the issue. If someone does not feel well enough to attend school, can the student at least attend remotely if feeling well enough once contacting the attendance office? Of course. That is one of the benefits, I think, if you are not feeling well, or in the case of perhaps you have been in a position where you have to self-isolate or quarantine. If you're feeling well and you can connect with your teachers, you should absolutely do that, and we welcome you to do that. The reason that students stay home from in-person learning is so that they don't spread germs. If you can stay home and you're feeling well enough to participate and engage with your classes, we encourage you to do that. Questions about when they can return to school. Any situation where we have students that have indicated that they have not cleared that questionnaire will be referred to their own primary doctor. At that point, there will be a course of actions that we'll need to take. If there is a COVID test, if that's positive, if that's negative, all of those protocols are being put in place in writing and will come out soon if they haven't already been posted to the website. We are going to be looking for some careful screening of that information. So if you suspect that your child might have, or if you have, if you're a student out there listening, COVID symptoms, be safe, stay home, get tested, let the school know, so that we can keep everyone safe. Do new students get school email addresses? Yes, absolutely, you do. Please, I want to say it might be on the student schedule, but we can check into that. I think when you log into the student portal, on your information page, underneath the student name, student address, there'll be information that shows your address. Usually it's the first name, period, last name at vestal.k12.ny.us. But we will be issuing those. It is important for students to check their school address daily. Once we start school, that is the way that teachers will communicate with you. They'll click on a little envelope in School Tool. We cannot use personal email addresses to connect with you. I know for many students, they prefer to use a Gmail account or some other method. For school functions, we really need for you to be checking your school email, stay up to date with that, and use that email also to communicate with your teachers. A question about, since they don't have lockers, what do they do with their coats? They don't have the coats just yet. Typically, students at the high school, they almost never use those lockers. Even students in the middle of the winter, many times they're not coming in with coats. I know it's a parent's dismay, but they do sometimes do that. Generally speaking, students will wear the coat, bring that with them. If we get to a place where, in the winter time, we are at a safe place and we're at a phase 4, we could look at designating lockers at that time. But we just can't, do the cleaning required to have students using the lockers at this time. How does the supervised mask taking off work? This is a great question. And I think this, has been a question that's been asked of me a lot of different times, because we hear mask breaks, and that's what New York State requires of us, is that students need to have a mask break. For some people, that gives them a sense of relief because their students are having a hard time wearing them. For others, it's a source of panic because they're worried about how long is that mask break going to take. The guidelines that we're putting in place here at the high school is that a mask break really is something that is very short term. It is something that can happen in a classroom when a student is doing independent or quiet work where there's not a lot of talking or there's no movement going on. They can remove their mask for a moment. So if I have my mask, a mask break might be to put this here. I have a little itch on my nose, whatever the case may be. And then I place the mask back on. That's what we consider to be a mask break here at Vestal High School. What supplies do we need? Teachers at the high school level, because students don't have a typical caseload for 9th grade and 10th grade, we don't do individual supply lists because it really depends on the courses that students take and the teachers that they have. So when you get the syllabi from your teachers, that will have any information about special things that you might need to get. It's usually nothing too taxing. Many teachers create teacher-generated workbooks that include all the homework problems, information like that will need to be used, and we will be distributing all of that information and all of those packets of information as they come out. I have the question, will students be able to drink from water bottles since they're required to wear masks at all times? I would recommend that if your child needs to hydrate during the day and has a water bottle, that they have one with a straw that they can use underneath there. Unfortunately, at the high school level, it really is about students starting to become independent. When we are in a typical school year, many students will come in with a slushie or a smoothie or a coffee. We need to really be mindful of the times that we're taking off those masks. We will not be allowing food or beverages like that in the classrooms this year. We will allow water bottles, but please try to include one of those plastic straws or a stainless steel straw, protect the environment. And we do have retrofitted drinking fountains that are no longer just for the spout. They do still have the drinking spout. We don't want students to use that, but they can put the bottle underneath it and it fills up the water. So that's a really great improvement that we have this year. If your child is released to do a problem during the period, can they re-engage the teacher during that same period, or do they have to wait for another day? That's something that we're still working on. So we're hoping that it becomes very fluid and that we all have a lot of skills in terms of going back and forth between students in front of us and students that are remotely. In the beginning, we're gonna have them kids released and they can work on those pieces. They can always send an email to their teacher or re-engage during the student support period or wait till the next day. That is our hope, that we are building that capacity to have more regular and a lot of skill to go back and forth. But please remember, teachers also have the responsibility of supervising the students that are in front of them, supervising the health and safety protocols, ensuring that all of the kids are following social distancing, mask wearing, as well as instructing students in front of them, making sure that the students, while they're there in front of us, are getting that substantive feedback that really makes the teacher the most valued possession in the classroom. How do you get the invite to the Google Classroom? Mrs. Smith sent that probably to students' school email addresses. So students should check their school email. If they are having trouble with that, call the RIC to reset the password, 766-3800, and they should be able to help you get there.
Mrs. Young?
Yes.
We are also adding the new students as they come in. So once they register, we are adding them in individually.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Smith. A question about students getting their student IDs. For new students and grade 9 students, we are going to be printing some temporary IDs. We will have those ready for students probably the first day of school. Definitely there will be at least a lunch ID with a barcode on there so that students can scan and not use the keypad for touching in their number. The actual plastic IDs probably will take a little bit of time to come in, and then we will distribute those. We will also be distributing for students a lanyard similar to, to one of these that says Vestal High School, I believe, on it, or Vestal Bears. I'm not sure which one. But it has a hole punch, and the students can put their ID card right through there. Make sure they have that on them. We are hoping that we can build the capacity for those IDs to also be used for scanning into the building, making sure that we can keep track of students when they're in the cafeteria and these different areas that are not specific to the classroom teacher taking attendance, so that we know where all students are in the event that we have to do any contact tracing. Teachers in the past did not often update grades to the parent portal. Will that change this year so that parents are up to date on their child's academic results? I'm not sure what the experience has been in the past. There are very few teachers that do not use the School Tool gradebook in the past for School Tool. Teachers will be posting things as quickly as they can. Please remember that when teachers post those assignments, they might have 100 students that they're grading papers for. So while a student might be taking that assessment on a Monday, the teacher has to go through all of those papers, provide that feedback, and then do all that data input. So we do the best that we can to keep up with that. If you have concerns about knowing what those grades are, you should contact your child's teacher first and ask them if they have that information for you. So generally speaking, you will get that updated regularly, but you can't expect it to be the same day that students take an assessment. Okay, there's a question here about students that do not have a lunch period. Unfortunately, students need to have a lunch period unless they're remote. We cannot have a place for students to eat that are not in the lunchroom. So if your child is choosing to overschedule every period and not have a lunch break, we do not have a place for them to eat. In the past, we've had students that want to take every class available, and they've been able to eat in the back of a classroom, or they have a teacher that says, that's fine, have your bagged lunch over there. Unfortunately, we cannot do that for the safety in our classrooms this year. Eating can only be done in the designated rooms during the designated lunch periods. So if your student's schedule looks that way and you are not a remote learner, remote learners are the exception, because obviously if you're remote, you could eat, find some time to eat in your own kitchen, or, hopefully it's in your kitchen so you're not putting crumbs all over the house. But if you are in school, we really need students to have a lunch period, because we cannot risk kids not having masks in areas that we have not designated for that. For clarification, on remote days, students will log into class at the beginning of each class and may be released to work offline. Yes. Dr. Blaine, I've kind of scrolled through this. I know some of these were duplicate questions. I tried to answer everything.
And I think you addressed pretty much everything. If someone thinks that a question wasn't answered, feel free to put it in the Q&A, but I wanted to also just draw your attention, Mrs. Young, to the chat. There are a couple questions in there.
Oh. Do you want to read me the questions? I don't.
Sure. Here's one question. What percentage of the student body will be entirely remote?
Based on the questionnaire that parents answered at the beginning of August, we have approximately 22% of high school students have chosen to be remote only.
Is there a German teacher? Someone's schedule says staff for that.
Yes, there is a German teacher. Our German teacher will be arriving from Germany, and so he will be, he is, I think, right now, I think he has arrived in the United States. He is quarantining, obviously, as he needs to, but he will be with us for the start of the school year. I'm not sure if it will be the very first day of school, because I'm not sure how the days are falling into line with him being able to be on board. The reason it says staff at this time is because we haven't had a chance to set up his account in SchoolTool and then have those courses attached to that teacher. So we are very excited to welcome our new German teacher to Vestal High School, who is a native New York State person, but has been living in Germany for a few years now and is returning back.
I think the last question that I see is, can you share the PowerPoint with families?
Yes, we will put that information out after this meeting.
All right, I think it's last chance to ask any questions if you still have any. But I'm not seeing any new ones.
This is our wait time. We're practicing wait time. Students and parents, I'm sure that there will be more questions that come up. We are appreciative of your questions. We're appreciative of your feedback. This is how we can improve our process. We are continually looking to improve and do better each day. If we don't have an answer or we're not sure how to define that, we will do our best to craft an answer and get that back to you. My email address is on the Vestal website. If you want it to go to any particular person and you can't find them, you can always email the generic high school email. That's also can be found on the Vestal High School webpage. I do try to answer emails as quickly as I possibly can if I have answers. So if you don't get an answer, feel free to email again, because sometimes it's possible it either didn't get through or it got lost in the shuffle of so many questions coming at us. We would like to encourage your participation and your feedback so we can do a better job. Oh, I see a question just popped up. How will phys ed be handled for remote learning? I was just talking with the phys ed team earlier today. We are looking for those students also to connect during their physical education period. On Fridays, that will be their remote day to specifically, if it's in their schedule on that day of the cycle, to connect with their PE teachers. They will be also doing a combination of putting out physical material, doing units that are less aerobic for people that are in person. Remote, they're going to be doing a combination of guided activities, physical activities through the Zoom meeting when they're there on Friday, as well as if they're doing a unit, let's say, on I don't know, some kind of physical fitness where they're doing some kind of a training. They might have something in their Google Classroom where they're posting a video and they're asking students to kind of critique the technique. They might ask them to post something about an exercise log. So we are looking for phys ed to be more physical and active this year than it was last year. Physical education is a requirement that students need to earn a half a credit every year in high school. That is a state guideline. So we need to make sure that our remote learners are getting active and that they're completing those half credits as well.
We have a few more questions in the question and answer section. I don't know if you want me to ask those.
Yes, please, if you can.
How many kids will be in a classroom at one time?
That's a good question. I know a lot of the district level information was talking about averages of 5 to 8 students in a classroom. At the high school level, students have many different pathways and many different combinations of classes. Unfortunately, we can't say that there will only be 5 students in every class. So we have looked at ways to limit, and we've balanced our cohorts. That's why we've changed kids. You know, we've been balancing. Once we get the sections balanced, then we balance the Monday with the Tuesday with the Thursday. And we're moving kids around in order to have those be as low as possible. What I will tell you is that we do have some of our classes where we may have 11 students in there. And then the next period, they might go to the next period where they have 4 students. Just so you're aware, our plan is to have assigned seating for each period. Students will sit in the desks once, and then there will be different desks that students will be sitting in for the next period. And then we'll have a disinfecting period before new students can sit in those desks. So I can't say for certain the exact number. It will vary throughout the day, but we do have teachers looking at those class rosters now. They're communicating with counselors. We've spent really the past week trying to even those out so that we were ready to communicate out the days of students. That's really the reason why we can't make any changes to cohort days at this point. We've spent lots and lots of time to try to make this as manageable and safe in each classroom environment. What I can tell you is that many of our classrooms, actually all of our classrooms, have outside windows. So we had a few small rooms that did not, and we have converted those to other places so that we can make sure that we can have outside air and circulation coming into those classrooms, particularly in the fall before the weather gets too cold. So we are looking at a lot of different safety measures to make sure that there's clean air coming in and to make sure that students are as spaced as we possibly can without having to reduce any of our course offerings.
If remote students are getting the focus on Friday, what about the hybrid students? Isn't the remote focus day on Wednesday?
No, the remote focus day is Friday. And I'm not sure what you mean about the hybrid students. Hybrid students will also be able to log in, as I explained earlier. If they're in person on Monday, then on Tuesday and Thursday and Friday, they will log in, get that beginning information. They can get some direction from the teacher who might direct them to the Google Classroom, who might direct them to do some independent research, who might say, you need to go and meet with your group on creating your Google slide presentation. That will happen on those days. And then Fridays, all of the students would have that initial check-in, and then the remote students would have their time to have that focused interaction and feedback from their teacher.
Can you give that tech support number one more time?
766-3800. They're going to be so happy with me tomorrow.
Yeah.
Other questions over there, Dr. Blaine?
I think you've answered and addressed all of the questions that I'm seeing.
Oh, I see one here. So what do they do on Wednesdays? So Wednesdays is going to be a day of independent learning for the students. They will have an opportunity to seek extra help, clarification during the student assistance period from their teachers. So teachers will be available to interact with them, but it will not be a teacher-directed lesson on that day. On that day, there would be an expectation either to check the Google Classroom to see what work needed to be done. On Tuesday, the teacher may have set an expectation of tomorrow you need to be, reading, 3 chapters in the book, 1 chapter in the book, 10 pages, whatever the assignment is for that day that would be equivalent to the progression of learning that needs to happen. So there is an expectation that each day of the week, there is a progression of learning with a certain amount of time attached to it. So on Wednesdays, that is independent learning, but it is directed by the teacher. So the teacher should be giving a direction for either completing homework, working in a group. They'll have a little bit more flexible time on that day in order to connect with other students. We are looking to put in place some virtual tutoring with our NHS tutors that can happen on Wednesdays as well. And this, of course, the student assistance period. You can always connect with your teachers, make an appointment for Wednesdays. Any other questions?
I think that's it, but of course, anyone who has any questions, of course, those questions will come up. Feel free to call the school, call the counseling and guidance office, the main office, the assistant principal's office. We will make sure that we get any answers to you that you need.
There's one more question in the chat about carrying backpacks.
Dr. Blaine, you want to answer that one?
Sure, of course, students are able to carry backpacks, and they do. They pack them really tightly. They're heavy. So yes, they can carry backpacks around to their classes.
I would just like to give an additional shout out to Lisa Milkovich. She is an amazing PTO president. I know she's looking to pass the torch, but she really does a lot to support our students. I'm not sure if you said how much it costs to join the PTO. I will send out in an email as an attachment the PTO, what is it called? The registration form, the membership form. But she also accepts donations above and beyond your membership fee that goes into that fund that then supports the mini grants, different kinds of teacher appreciation. You know, the people that support the PTO with their time and their energy is wonderful, but they also appreciate if you can't give time and energy and you can give money, they are happy to have that as well. So thank you to Lisa. She's really a great resource. And certainly if there's questions that you have, you know, as a parent, I'm sure she'd be happy to connect with you with the PTO group. If there's questions you have and you don't feel comfortable asking the school, I know is really comfortable asking us any questions that you might have. So she's a great advocate for parents as well. So I thank everyone for joining us tonight. I'm really looking forward to meeting the rest of our incoming students tomorrow. I guess it's nighttime and I hope everyone is well. And I'm looking forward to seeing everyone come into school in September, starting on September 14th. Again, questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We want this to be a successful, supportive year for all your students. Thank you.